So really welcome here. Today we have a new content for our Brazil-US connection. And we have really special guests here. It's the first time that we do with two guests. So it's a first. It's really good. So we have Brad DiNovi and Paulie Gavoni. And they will tell us all about their story into ABA and what do they do. And we will discuss like many things on ABA that I think that it will be for a huge value for everyone here in Brazil. So really welcome and many thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. I have to give you a heads up that I don't have a camera that's stationary, so it's my laptop. It's my laptop on my lap, which means it may shake a little bit, but I'll try to keep it calm.
No problem.
Shelly, thanks for having us on. It's an honor to be here and share our story with you.
Oh, the honor is all mine. So who wants to start telling how you guys entered in the field of ABA and why you went there? And
let Iron Man go first.
Have Iron Man, I like it. Okay, all right. Mine's not real long. I had a scholarship, a full scholarship for wrestling to West Virginia University. And what happened there was I had a series of injuries that made me realize that I'm not going to be a professional wrestler. So that I better apply my energy towards something that can be a career. So I was just actually lucky that I took an undergraduate course in educational psychology and then decided to go to graduate school because Dr. Julie Vargas was my professor in that class, and she really taught behavior analysis in a way that was understandable to me, just like we were chatting about earlier. It sounds like Michelle and Paulie and the three of us in our little discussion earlier, the three of us seem to have a common interest in the idea of making the science more user-friendly. And that's what Julie did for me. And it really sparked my interest. And I learned that not only does behavior analysis apply to education and autism, but it applies to leadership, to sports training, so many different areas. So I was fortunate that what I did is I just kept nagging. I just kept nagging Julie and asking her if I could take the next course and the next one. And then she encouraged me to go to graduate school there. And her husband, Dr. Ernest Vargas, a lot of respect for him. He saw that I was really motivated, probably a real pain in the rear end, because I would find myself at the banging on their door regularly, just asking questions, and one of the other reasons that I started to study it was that after I had these injuries to my shoulder, both shoulders, I had a lot of anxiety and depression as a result of the injuries and not being able to wrestle. And I went to a counselor at West Virginia University, and it was more like talk therapy. And I got nothing out of that. And it was in fact, I'm not saying counseling is not effective for people, but for me, it actually made me lose interest in the field of certain areas of psychology, because after I spilled my guts and I told the counselor all these problems that I'm facing with anxiety, and depression, she said to me, I never heard of that, man. I can't help you. So I spent multiple sessions over and over, and really spoke from the heart. And then her answer at the end of it was like, I can't help you, and I don't know what to tell you. And that's where I started learning that there are very lawful principles that are measurable in behavior science and applied behavior analysis, and they produce measurable outcomes. So that's what made me really, between Julie and Dr. Vargas, Ernest Vargas, taking me under their wing, and then realizing I'd like a measurable science that produces an outcome to help my own mental health. That kind of sparked that interest. And then at that point, Dr. Vargas allowed me to teach his course for the book that he wrote. It was actually behaviorology was the name of the course. And behaviorology was basically, applied behavior analysis. And I learned so much by teaching the course. It was interesting, Michele, because Dr. Vargas and Dr. Vargas, they both would go into the back of the room when I was teaching, and it made me really nervous. But when I was teaching the graduates, the undergraduates, they would take data on the rate of responding of the students. And they would chart that on acceleration chart, like Ogden Lindsay's original, the semi-logarithmic chart. And that made me very nervous, but they gave me feedback regularly after every discussion that I did, every class that I taught at the university. At the end of it, they would show me a chart and show me the rate of responding of the students. So that taught me how to actively engage the students, So I don't know if you want to hear any more, but that's how it started.
Wow. I fantastic. And it's so new to me that Julie Vargas, from what you tell, was someone like that who spoke like in an easy way, that wants to reach more people, that it's so new. And for the ones who doesn't know, Julie Vargas is the daughter of B.F. Skinner. So it's really new, I think, for everyone who will be listening, to have someone so ready to teach. I think that's what we need, because we are needy from that.
Yes. And I don't want to bore you anymore with this, but then I was lucky enough to get an internship that turned into a paid consultation internship. So at the same time, while I was getting my graduate school paid for by teaching the course through an assistantship, I got recruited to a company called Continuous Learning Group, and they were an OBM group. An what they were was organizational behavior management. So behavior science was combined with industrial engineering.
Okay.
And the two departments came together at the university and created Continuous Learning Group. So I had the opportunity to do OBM consultation and apply the science to leadership with companies like United Postal Service, UPS.
Okay.
And then back then Bell Atlantic, and there was a gas company, and that helped me learn how to apply the science to industry and make measurable changes to help organizations become more profitable and reduce turnover. So that was cool.
Great. So Paulie,
Paulie's stories are they're definitely better than mine.
That's a good story, man. I mean, gosh, Julie Vargas, your mentor. Like, I had no mentorship.
Me.
There was like nothing. I had a book, but I actually I got my bachelor's and my master's in social work because I wanted to help people. And, you don't go into that field because you want to make money. There's no money in that field at all. But so I started off in mental health, and I stumbled across this course. I thought it was going to be like this little certification. If I took it, I could get a couple extra bucks, make some money. And when I started taking the course, it was just like I was in the matrix. Well, it was kind of like I knew that this existed, but now there was like terms for it, and it just made perfect sense to me. It's like how I thought anyhow. And so I started, working for a school board, and in schools over here, I'm not sure if they're over there, but we have something called positive behavior intervention supports. Have you ever heard that? It's like school-wide
Yeah.
application. And so the school I was in was a mess. It was like the kids had taken over the school, the hallways are running, like teachers were crying. It was crazy. And I'm a big guy, and I was teaching crisis management. They're like, hey, we want you to come out here. Do you think you can turn the school around? I'm thinking like, no, I can do for all this, but I'm a behavior analyst. But though I wasn't surrounded by behavior analysts, I didn't go to conventions. I didn't read the research or anything. I thought, well, I should know how to do this stuff. So I said to a colleague of mine, like, hey, they have this PBIS stuff out there, but it really seems like they need PBIS for adults. And they said, well, there is something kind of like that. It's called organizational behavior management. And she handed me the book by Aubrey Daniels called Bringing Out the Best in People. And so I just started applying some of those things, and in like the hallways where I felt like I could actually control something, make a difference. And what I ended up calling those quick wins, and it made a difference. So, in a year, and it wasn't just me, it was with an amazing team of people. We brought the year before, there was like almost 900 suspensions. That year, we brought the suspension rate down, out of school suspensions, to under 70. And then was able to replicate that again and again. I ended up getting a internship at Aubrey Daniels International, and met some very cool guys that kind of helped to polish, what I was doing. And I started applying it to, the sports and training mixed martial arts fighters. And I had, multiple champions. It wasn't me. It was just the practical basic principles. Brett's way better with the science than I am.
He's being humble. Paulie helped use the science in various ways to coach many champions. And correct me if I'm wrong on it, but one of them was a world champion that beat one of the best in Russia.
Yeah. No, but it has, but it's the science. The point is, we were speaking about this earlier, you can do anything with the science, and it doesn't have to be deep levels of behavior analysis. It can be just the practical principles. And that's why we wrote Behavioral Karma. Brett's talking about this. I love leadership. So it could be athletic leadership, school leadership. I believe, if we really want to make a change at scale, we have to equip leaders with basic principles of behavior. And this is where organizational behavior management comes in. And that's why I pursued my doctorate in organizational leadership, because the OBM, I was like, well, this is just ABA, but it's ABA for organizations. So, but now I want to find out a little bit more about leadership, and let's apply it in these different areas. So that's my passion. And that's how I got into the field.
Great. So you mixed sports and schools, something that many people would not like. People who don't understand the science will not see how it fits. So that's why they need to understand really the basis of the science in order for them to see it through like every environment.
Oh, and I actually was I don't want to name the organization, but I was a leader in another organization a few years back, and they had almost 100% turnover. We got, through applying organizational behavior management, we got that to like what the norm is in our industry, down to around 45% inside of a year, because it creates an environment where people are happier, they're performing better. You got sustainability, you got higher retention rates, better, profit, and most importantly, the learners are getting better services, which is, the ultimate outcome we're trying to produce. And that's all from the science.
Yeah, definitely. So let's tell people what you guys do it now. I think that we can start on Brett DiNovi Associate. So what it is, what does it do? So I think that it's a model that people really could shape from their own organizations, because everything you guys build, it was through ABA, through the science, not the service, just but the culture and everything you guys created. So let's tell people about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, Brett DiNovi Associates, or we call it BDA, it's been in existence about 17 and a half years, and started it back in 2004. And what happened was I was working in a residential facility for learners with autism, and I saw that an individual was being put into mechanical restraints due to severe behaviors, and it it really was not appropriate what was happening. So this young man was put into mechanical restraints for the just for the ease of the therapists. It made their jobs easier, and all I did was I saw him sweating, and he was already overweight and had some medical challenges. And I gave him a glass of water and I put a fan on him. And then I got disciplined for doing that. And the concern I had was that this individual on the autism spectrum had already had previous medical issues. And when I the only right thing to do is to make sure he was treated with dignity and safely. And it was disturbing to me that that's how he was being managed with severe behaviors. And look, I think residential facilities are needed at times, but the mechanical restraint, I mean, it was just really cruel the way it was being used. And then there was that moment in time in 2003 or four when I decided that there's got to be a different way and to apply behavior analysis to keep kids in less restrictive settings. So at that point, I made a conscious decision. Not to mention, I think they weren't happy with me because I was speaking up, and they gave me disciplinary action. So that gave me the inspiration to start this organization. So there really was not any. When I started the company, I didn't even know like how you were supposed to name a company. I just made my name, and then I put associates, even though there were no associates. It was just me. It sounded cool. I'm like, wow, veterinary associates, that sounds really cool. But there wasn't any associates. But then we hired one or two and then started building. And to date in 2021, we're between 600 and 700 employees across 5 states. And what this talk is meaningful that Paulie and I do about behavior science, and what you care about too, Michelle, is that I never had a business class in my life, and I still have never had a business class. But the application of behavior science can build businesses. So when you understand human behavior and that human behavior is very lawful, you just apply that to inspire people. And also you apply the laws of science to reduce turnover, to increase engagement. So that way, one of the biggest challenges, as you know, is in the classroom, getting it in teachers to highly engage with learners, because that's how they learn best. So using the application, just like Paulie did, doing that in schools and in home programs, and knowing that now we have an organization, a preschool up in the state of Maine. We're primarily all throughout New Jersey. We're in eastern Pennsylvania, moving rapidly towards western Pennsylvania. We're in California and helping a lot of kids there. And then we just opened up recently in Miami Beach area of Florida. And then just one by one learning how to apply the science to scale the organization. Now, Paulie has been particularly instrumental in the coaching aspect of these employees. There were so many going through the pandemic, I don't know, what are we going on, a year and a half? I mean, it feels like the pandemic feels like 10 years, but there, I got to tell you, not only did Paulie coach me myself through very difficult times so I could help provide leadership to the organization, but there were some real key leaders that he provided coaching to using behavior science that got them through difficult times. So, the science has so many applications. Now, what I've been doing recently is using the science in how to interview people and use database decisions to make good offers to hire and recruit people that care about vulnerable people. And Paulie and I share a very similar value, which is we don't like bullies. And we make sure that when we hire someone, it's very systematic. And by using behavior science and the 5 laws, that we find that we can bring out the best in people, just like Aubrey Daniels wrote that book, through using data. And then I recently have taken it to a different level, and there's some things I can't really talk about, but I've also been able to use it to help the federal government when it comes to areas that are being impacted by the pandemic right now. Yep. Thanks for asking. I guess that might have been longer than what you wanted it to be.
No, not at
Well,
all.
I'll tell you what, one of the things that Brett really excels at, I look at him as a genius entrepreneur, is that he just has this gift of selecting the right people. We have an amazing culture at BDA. We have amazing people that work here, and he is hands-on with every person that's hired in this organization. I don't know what, I've never seen a leader that's been that way. Every person that comes through, they're sitting there interviewing. There's a whole process of doing it. So the selection process, it just in and of itself is rooted in some basic applied behavior analysis. So it's we really have a special group of people that work here.
And while you were talking, I thought, how do you guys manage to do that? Like, how could we tell people, how do you guys manage to do that, like across like 6 states, I guess? And it's a lot of people. I know that it probably has a lot of process into everything, like in order to things work well in each state, independently of your presences at the place. I don't know, does it has a physical place, like, or it's just, because I know that it has in-home programs, so the company has a physical facility, something like that?
Yeah, yes, it does. So we have a few sites in New Jersey. One of them is the Operant Learning Center in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. It's an educational center. Up in Maine, the state of Maine, it's a preschool. Multiple administrative offices. Out in California, we opened what's called the Operant Learning Center, the OLC of Orange County, California. And so what we realized is that in order to grow an organization across other states, one of the most important, and this is an area Paulie's really helped with, is adjusting to the culture. So the culture in New Jersey is drastically different than the way it would be in the state of Maine. So, what we realized is one of the most, and this yourself, that one of the most important parts in the beginning of any relationship from teacher, student, or colleagues is the pairing process, making sure that you can pair with positive reinforcement in order to have any influence. So what we've learned is that we've made many failures over time, but we've learned that we have to adjust to the culture of each state that we work in. So the state of Maine is a much slower pace, and there are different contingencies that they operate under. So we have to adjust. And out in California, especially in Los Angeles, there's a different culture there. And we just opened up in Texas as well. And I'm interested to see how that's going to go. We'll see. I've haven't spent much time in Texas, but in some ways that's like its own country, I think. And down in Florida, it's a different culture. So learning to adapt the science of people in a way that adapts to the culture.
And if I could add to that as well, and on top of that, is that what's one of the beauties of why we wrote Behavioral Karma and then the 5 laws is that everywhere we go and everything that we do, we look at things through the 5 laws, whether it's selection process, the onboarding, the training, the coaching, how we're leading, teaching people to use the 5 laws. So that way it has this ripple effect, because really it's just getting people to use the science of human behavior to assess, problem solve, and make decisions. And when you have that lens on, you really can't go wrong. You're going to make mistakes, but now you look at the mistakes through that lens.
Yeah. So, and how is the process, for example, just to give a tip for everyone, when someone wants to start working in the company, so they come, you have a process on hiring, and then those people go through some kind of program where they will learn. How is it? I think that people could learn from that.
Well, initially we do similar things to what you do, which I respect a lot, where initially there are many videos, even in the selection and hiring process. We first want to make sure that whatever way they consume content the best, which could be through Audible, or it could be through YouTube videos, or it could be reading, it could be in person, whichever way people can determine if it's the right fit for them by looking at the culture of the organization. We find the YouTube videos, which are free, just like what you do, to be a good way to determine if someone thinks it's the right fit for them. So we encourage them to review some videos, and they'll know right away if it's for them or not. Because especially when I start saying crazy stuff, but we basically, everyone understands right from the gate that there are 3 values that we care about the most, and those 3 values are real simple. I mean, it's the employee's family comes first, and that's important, because if you don't take care of your family at home, you can't take care of other families, and that, having a family yourself. And then the second value is hoping that people find a passion or something that they're inspired by, and then if behavior science can help them find that passion, that's a second value. And then our third value is trying to give people the unlimited resources so they can do that. And we make those values up front very clear. And then the training process, you're already ahead of the game once you've established that someone has similar values. And then they go through live orientation training, which Paulie has had a big impact on in his team, and so has Anika. And what we do is do a lot of live orientation, both in person and in online. And then probably the third step is that we go out and shadow. We have employees that are new shadow, similar to what you're aware of that you do and you've done historically in your university programs, like behavior skills training. Yep. And then the hard part is being able to fade gradually fade. But really, it just all comes down to training leaders to be leaders.
Yeah. We also do a pyramidal training program where we, train this couple of coaches so they can train more coaches, because we're very coaching oriented. And as part of the 5 laws, we call it reciprocal feedback. The coach is always learning from the coachee, or the teaching the coachee, but the coach is also learning from the coachee based on their responses. So, it's all about how we can learn from one another and bring out the best in one another. And so we really try to build those skills. So again, it has a ripple effect across the organization.
Yep.
Great. And since we're talking about training other people and everything, we know that not just in ABA, but I think that many professions in the US, it has a culture of supervision that we don't have in Brazil. So in Brazil, you do, for example, you go to law school and you do your bachelor's degree, and then you leave, you pass your board exams, and then you were on your own. So you don't need to have anyone supervising your work or mentoring you or anything else. Like if you want to, okay, but you are not obligated to. And the same happens in every other profession. So you do some internship while you are at school, but that's it. And at your internship, you have a supervisor and everything. And this applies to all professions, psychology, engineering, and everything. But the US has this culture on supervision. And especially ABA and all the regulations. And I would like, since you guys work with lots of people, so I would like you to bring some insights on the thing on supervision versus consultation versus mentorship. That are terms that usually we have misunderstandings on.
Brett, let me take a quick shot at this and I'll pass it over.
Yeah, you're better at that. You're better.
Yeah. So I'm just going to keep it very behavioral in nature. And that is when you're going to school to learn something, that's about like knowledge and skill acquisition, right? You're able to do this thing. So if I train a fighter outside of the cage or the ring, right, they might look really good throwing punches, hitting the bag, but that doesn't mean they're able to apply that knowledge and skills in the natural environment, which is the fight, right? Because now you have to discriminate. You have to know what to do, and then you have to discriminate when to do it, and it has to become automatic. And so I look at, training against skill acquisition, coaching and supervision or mentoring or all these things. It's about supporting the transference of those skills into the natural environment, if that makes sense, right? So
Totally.
Give the people the knowledge and skills to do it, and then help them, tweak their behavior, help them see the impact of their behavior on the environment. So that way that result starts taking over their behavior, and then you can fade out. And I look at, that's what supervision is. Supervision in my mind is coaching, because that's just coming from somebody who's been a coach for a long time. And but in our field, it's coaching using behavioral principles, and it's coaching with the focus on behavioral principles, so people are really applying effectively and producing the results as intended. I don't know what you want to add to that, Brett, but that's my simplistic description of it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And then when it comes to supervision, what we found is that it's important from the moment someone's hired to really the lifespan of them in the organization, for them to have one person assigned as what we call their executive coach. So the executive coach takes accountability for their performance. And quite often that's a hard concept for people to swallow, at where a leader is accountable for the behavior of those that they lead. But that's just a simple behavior analytic principle, because just like a teacher is accountable for the student's performance in a behavioral science perspective, in the early stages of every employee, they don't have the resources, the tools, the knowledge, the understanding of the culture. It's really the executive coach's responsibility to get them where they need to go. And every single employee is assigned an executive coach. Now, that executive coach may not necessarily have all the tools that can bring that employee along, but they can connect them to other mentors in the organization or outside the organization that can help with their repertoire wherever they're lacking. So that accountability is important. And the way I see it, and Paulie feels the same way, like, those that we were leading, anything that goes wrong is going to be my fault. So I see it that way. And, everything from the financials to how well someone works with an individual in a classroom or an employee's performance, if something goes wrong, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which 600 or 700 employees it is, in some way or another, it's my fault. So I think, it can be a lot of pressure, but when I think when leaders can take that accountability, it can really make the new employee feel good that it's errorless learning.
I feel the same way. The measure of the leaders and the behavior of the followers. When my fighters lose, the first thing I think about after they lose is what do I need to do more, less, or differently to help them perform better. And that's part of that behavioral lens where it seems like people within our field take off that lens when they start working with anybody else but the vulnerable learner, and they forget the principles are the same with the adults around you. What are we going to do more, less, or differently to help them perform well? Let's stop blaming them. Let's start looking at the environment and adjusting them and making sure if they have a skill deficit, okay, we need to support them with the skills. If there's a motivational deficit, what do we need to do differently to support that? So yeah.
Can I take a picture of you guys?
Sure.
I
already posted on Instagram.
Smile. Oh, that's cool. All right. I will. Sometimes
sure,
I'm glad Paulie's smiling, because you don't want to make him mad. I've learned that the hard way.
I assume that he's a big guy, so everybody looks at him and stays like afraid of him.
I'm a teddy bear. They call me. They used to call me the Tootsie Pop because I'm hard on the outside but soft on the inside. That's true. They did.
Speaking about the terms that you guys brought, this is a little easier to do or less difficult to do when you are all in the same organization. But the tough thing that I see it, thinking about like Brazil perspective and what people bring, is that when I am an independent, I am in the field, and I have a supervisor that we are not at the same practice. So that's where things get really difficult for many people, because like I have my practice, but I hire like a supervision or consultation, and I have someone outside telling me what to do and how to do it. So that's where people they don't like supervision here in Brazil. Here is how they feel,
I was going to turn my certification, and this is no disrespect to psychologists and whatsoever. I know a lot of great psychologists, they do what they do, but there was a point where they were going to be in charge of supervising us. And our science is a natural science. It's a whole different ballgame, even though, it came out of psychology. It's a natural science, and you have to be skilled. You really have to understand the principles of behavior at a deep level. And it's not that none of the psychologists did, because some of them were actually practicing behavior analysts, and I would have been fine with them supervising me. But if you're not studied in ABA, I would have had a problem with that for me personally. It's like, I don't know. It's like somebody coming from, that's an expert in karate and trying to supervise me with boxing. They're both combat sports, but boxing is a very nuanced, very difficult, very subtle. Or a wrestler trying to train somebody in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or vice versa. They're both grappling, but they're very different.
great analogy. And that's what happens when people, they fight with me because I tell them that ABA is not psychotherapy. And psychologists, they fight that, no, what are you telling? ABA is psychotherapy. And I say, no, you can use ABA into your practice on psychotherapy. That's okay. You can apply the science doing psychotherapy. But ABA, the way that we do, the things that we do is not psychotherapy. So you are mixing concepts. And they are doing that because they don't know, and they are fighting about. So I think it would be important for us to tell people, okay, ABA is not psychotherapy. I always show like John Bailey's book. I think that it's this book here, that the first chapter he starts with that ABA, is it ABA a psychotherapy? And he says, no, it is not. But people usually confuse. And that's why I loved your analogy on sports that you did.
Yeah, I think we had the opportunity to interview Dr. Hank Schlinger yesterday, and he wrote an article about training graduate students and saying that we might need to focus a little bit more on training them and more of the philosophical underpinnings of behaviorism, so they're able to more eloquently defend the science and explain it to other people. Because I stumble on it as well. I mean, I clearly know the difference. There's no doubt about that, but if I want to be able to say, well, here's the way you think about your thing, and here's the concept. So there's a very clear line. And if you can speak, they'll be maybe more able to understand it. But I don't even fight the fight. Just, you know what, go out and make a difference. It's behind it, and that's going to talk bigger than anything.
Yeah. And sometimes what I've noticed is that whatever somebody wants to call it, if it's producing behavior change, it's behavior analysis. And, I think I've been in IEP meetings where OT, speech, the various disciplines, they start to disagree on a method of training a student. And what I've said is, look, call it whatever you want to call it. If you're increasing appropriate behaviors and learning at a rapid rate, and you're decreasing problem behaviors, I don't care what you call it, just use the principles the right way.
Yeah. Or, you know what, while you guys are sitting here arguing about what to call it, let me get in there and make a difference. You guys can call it whatever the hell you want, I'm going to go in here and make a difference. And I think that's the good ones are doing that too. And I think, to Brett's point, if it's working what they're doing, then we can explain it behaviorally. There's a science behind it, whatever they call it. I agree.
Yeah, I think that those name callings is more like about the person itself than the others. They want to prove, oh no, this is mine, this is my contribution, it's a contribution from my field or from the other field. So everybody starts fighting about who takes credit.
We've got to be flexible too, and like, hey, let them take credit, let's slide, let's shake them a little bit, let's give them a little bit more, reinforce their behavior. So pretty soon they're using behavior principles and they're calling it something else, but at least they're making a better difference out in the world.
Yeah.
And speaking about that, I think we have a lot on that on the autism world, because people, they created their own methods and methodologies, and they change the names, and they say that it's not ABA. No, it's not ABA. It is X. I created X and I call it X, but I am using reinforcement, antecedent strategies and everything, but I'm calling X and it's my method. People do that a lot. And practitioners, they stay lost because they feel like, oh my God, now I need to know about, for example, ESDM, the Denver model. Oh, now I need to know about teach. Now I need to know, and I need to be a certificate on all those areas. And they start to lose themselves. I don't know if in the US you guys feel that, or it has this movement, but here in Brazil we have a lot, and they start to doing lots of methods and be certified on those methods, and they forget to look the bigger picture. I don't know if it happens.
There's fads that was happening with positive behavior supports, where they were like suggesting that they were their own field, and it's just like, no, it's not. It's ABA. In fact, it's organizational behavior management as applied to schools, but usually missing like a feedback loop, because you really want to start with the superintendent and go all the way down. I know we definitely have fads that do that stuff, and it's unfortunate because it takes away from people using the real science to make a difference, and it could actually hurt people, not help people.
Yeah, it's commonly kind of what you were alluding to. It's often someone's ego wanting to say this is the way you do it, or someone tries to make the science proprietary and make money from a certain name, as opposed to just the principles being applied to help people.
Yeah, they make something commercial. So, and then people start to get crazy, and they get really they get an anxiety about that, because practitioners, they start to feel that they are not enough, and they need to have more and more and more and more titles and more letters after their names. And they start to lose themselves in the process. So I see that a lot. This already happened to me. And then I said, okay, no, stop it. I will see the bigger picture, and I want something that gives me strong foundations. So a method cannot give you strong foundations, but a science can. But people, they go, and sometimes it's not what are they expecting, and they move forward and move back. So that's something that they go through also social reinforcement from their peers, because they start saying, oh, you did this credential, so I need to do it too. And they start to go crazy. And when they see they don't know anything, because their minds are so full, and they start really going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, even within the science of behavior analysis, when you take credentials out of, even if you take these different credentials out of it, within the field of behavior analysis, at the end of the day, behaviors either increase, they stay stable, or they decrease. And there's so much discussion about positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative. I mean, it just goes, on and on. And I remember my mentor and Dr. Ernest Vargas saying, look, if it goes down, it's a decelerative procedure. And if it goes up, I think they called it an accelerative procedure. One thing increases behavior, the other decreases it. And, the key is being able to maintain a certain level of performance, and then fade out all the artificial reinforcers, so that the behavior itself contacts the natural rewards. That's the key, because you can artificially reinforce a behavior with things that are not so good for a learner. Like you could be using candy or things that are not really healthy, but at the end of the day, that student, what they're usually shooting for is that when they become adults, they want to be able to either make friends or socialize or get a job. And if they're dependent on artificial type reinforcers that are not going to generalize to the real world, then they may not be accomplishing their own goals.
Yeah. And then to piggyback on that, because I mean, Brett kept it very parsimonious, very simple, and that's what we need to do. It's the same thing.
No, you just say that because I'm simple as shit.
Nah, we're both in that bucket, buddy. That with organizational behavior management, it's the same thing. Applying the same concepts, right? Except for instead of just looking at changing the behavior, we're also looking at the result that it's producing. So it's the result that we want to produce in the organization, and what behaviors do we need to do more or less or differently to achieve that result. So keeping things simply, it's like let's just bring it back to that, and things get better for everybody.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So let's tell people we have behavioral karma that people can listen through Audible in English, but maybe we will talk more and work something out to bring this knowledge to Brazil. So people will have to wait the next chapters of this history that it's being constructed. But for the ones who can listen to English, so they can hear through Audible behavioral karma, right?
And the written one is temporarily taken down from Amazon, the written book, because it's now going to a new edition, and then
well, it's actually still up. I don't think they've cleared their inventory yet. It's still up. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, geez.
So that's still up right now, but we have the second edition is going to be coming out just in a couple of weeks. So people can still pick it up on Amazon right now in paperback or audiobook. And then to your point, hopefully one day we'll get it in Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also have quick responses. So I don't have mine yet. It's arriving, but I don't know if you have near to you that you could show.
I do.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
Quick responses
for reducing misbehavior and suspensions, a toolbox for classroom and school leaders. So it was meant for the teacher and the school leader. So essentially, what do you need to do in the classroom to bring out the best in students? And what do you need to do outside of the classroom to bring out the best in teachers? And I wrote it with 4 other behavior analysts who are also educators. We have a combined experience of, 80 years in there. So it's real effective stuff.
Paulie is 70 of those years. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's perfect.
No, I'm kidding.
But these guys are G's in it. So it's real stuff. I look at it as it fills in the holes for things that have been we tackle punishment. A lot of the books don't want to talk about punishment. It's like, you can't have one without the other, and they're naturally occurring. So let's get the teachers to use it effectively, make sure that we create an environment that's rich with positive reinforcement. But if a misbehavior occurs, what do you do? And you need to know what to do. You need to know why. You got to be careful when you do it. And if you do it too much, why that's a problem, et cetera, et cetera. So, we walk people through that.
And apply it to all of the students. So people, I just want to give a heads up on that. So that you guys were writing for every student. So not, you can apply those principles to everyone. So you have and some autistic kid or any other kid. So people talk a lot about ODD,
oppositional defiant disorder.
Yeah. So, and if we start to looking things on behaviorally and applying the science, we will look more than diagnosis and just solving problems.
If I can make a pitch to anybody here with behavioral, if you're out of the field or in the field, behavioral karma, that book, it just gets you to look at your behavior and the impact of your behavior on your own why and all these things but also how you're impacting other behavior, so you can help yourself be better and you can help others behave better. So in this case that you just mentioned oppositional defiant, that might mean, they might be defiant towards you because of the way you're approaching them. So you really have to reflect on your own behavior and the results. And behavior karma helps you to see that through these 5 laws. Yeah.
And it's also, we spoke a lot about students and people with disabilities or whatever, but when we wrote, we each have our personal stories in there, and the 5 laws of, for me, they got me through bankruptcy, addictions, of alcohol and so forth, and building the business back, and then being able to see my daughter and put my family back together. So those 5 laws of just pinpointing, number one, just pinpointing, the result you want, and then the actions that have the biggest impact on it. Goal setting, which in itself, goal setting is it acts as a condition or a discriminative stimulus, making that goal visual. And then law number 3, which is like just self-monitoring your own behavior and reporting it out to someone who cares. So self-monitoring report out is number 3 law. And knowing that you have to be accountable to someone. It could be weight loss, it could be exercise, it could be addictions, financial matters, whatever it is. And then law 4 is just reciprocal feedback. So in other words, that person that you're reporting out the information to gives you feedback, and then you go back and forth and you solve problems. And then the 5th law, which is pay for performance, is really just rewards for all the others. So we each have our own story, but for me, the biggest reward was being able to see my daughter, and which through a really rough divorce, I was unable to see her. And that was the biggest payoff for me. So the laws of science can be applied to get through life, and especially now during this pandemic, because now we're looking at a whole nother wave of challenges with mental health. So Paulie and I hope that people don't look at the science just for education.
Yeah.
Everything that you do, yeah.
And I'm curious here, where did you guys meet?
I like to do my best impression of Brett. He's got, Brett grew up on the streets of Philly. So, well, you know what? It was interesting. And this is a true story. I don't know if Brett remembers it. As a matter of fact, Michelle, remember offline we were talking about, I wrote that article a while back for B-Side 21 called Fighting Words in ABA. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of private responses from people saying, I loved your article, but nobody commented on it because it was a scary thing to comment because it was going against the grain. Yeah. 2 people comment. Brett was one of those guys. Brett was one of those guys that commented on it. He said something real nice. He goes, yo, I know his voice now. Yo, I love your article. It was cool. And then I was working for another organization. I was like, I needed to market somehow. And I would see his videos all the time. Like, oh, this guy's cool. We need to do what he's doing. And then he reached out to me one time and said, hey, I see that you do MMA, and he's a world class and a champion wrestler. And so we bonded on that, and we were together at a conference presenting. We got to see each other, present, and we just, clicked. So it was fantastic because we're both casual, laid back guys in terms of like how we approach the science, but we're both like fighters and drive through stuff even when there's problems. Like there's no stopping, especially this guy. He's got the like wrestler has a grinder mentality that you don't stop. We got to pull him back sometimes, man, just to relax.
Yeah, I'm like, help me rein it in. Help me rein it in.
Yeah, but there's that fighter mentality that we both have. So
yeah.
Oh, great. Super unusual. It's not like you guys studied together or something like that, like really unusual, and your paper made the difference to for you guys to connect and to see that you have the same values and the same way of seeing life. Yeah. And it's great. So I just have to thank all the information that you guys shared. We don't have lots of people willing to share because people are so afraid that if I share with you, you will pick up my ideas and you will pick up my business and everything and my place in the world. So many people, they are afraid to share, or they just don't like, oh, that's not a priority.
Or they also feel like afraid they're not a vulnerability. I mentioned this, I don't know if on there or off there, but make sure you guys go check out Behavioral Karma, the YouTube channel, Brett's YouTube channel. You'll see like real behind the scenes footage of what goes on. It's like very transparent. Like we were screwing up, there were mistakes being made. You see like we're all people, and so what do you do? And it's just very vulnerable, and I'm proud of what we put out with that stuff, because I've never seen anything like it, and
Yeah,
like it's a real model.
it was a great idea this team had, because we just decided let's film reality of a series. So the trailer just came out. It's just it's about our failures and how we learn from them, and how to build an organization and all the components. So it's pretty raw, and it's more of a reality binging series. And the trailer's up now on YouTube under Behavioral Karma, but then the first episode comes out, and some of this stuff's pretty raw.
Yeah, I went to check, and the good thing is that on computer, everyone can see and put translation automatically. So everybody can see in Portuguese, and it's easier for people to do. And yes, that's how I discovered. I had told you off air. That's how I discovered you guys, Brett, especially Paulie, because of his book. But I did not know that they were connected. And then I found out.
A lot of people don't know that I'm Paulie Gloves. Like, if you ever see Paulie Gloves out in the world, that's me. I'm the same guy.
Yeah. Or people think your last name is Gloves. They're like, "Hey, Dr. Gloves."
Yeah.
It's Gavoni and DiNovi.
Yeah.
What a crew. And
hey.
Michele, I really found speaking with you to be inspiring too, that what you're doing in Brazil, and I'm hoping we'll be able to connect over continents, if that is that. Yeah, let's figure out a way to get in person at some point.
Yeah, we have a trip already. It was scheduled, but through COVID, everything is crazy. But we are planning to go to the US with my family on December next year, and we will be on Florida and New York.
Hey.
So I hope that we can manage a way to, you guys know my whole crew here, my two boys and my husband, and we can be in person. So we are considering being in the US for 20-30 days.
We could vlog the whole thing, Brett. Get together and do a vlog with it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You could maybe even YouTube live it. You never know.
Yeah, we can do many things. So we are already organizing everything. We plan to go in December and get back just on January, something like that. So, and doing everything by car, because my husband, he hates planes. So in order for him to just go Brazil through Florida by plane, it's a huge thing for him. So we walk in the US.
That's a long walk.
Yeah, we did that. We went Florida through Ohio by car. He's a driver. He loves to drive. So that's our thing, driving through the
Just
US.
be safe. Be safe, because things in the United States are getting crazy.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that we will be able to be in person soon, because we plan to spend some time in New York and Florida.
Yeah. I got to call my daughter. I already saw my phone blowing up. Families first, don't forget.
Families first. Yeah. So thank you very much. And let's keep doing good things. And I hope that we can work together.
Awesome.
I think we will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michele.